Hello, freaks, geeks, and all those unique. This is EmceeFrodis, and this is The Way. We're into season 2 of The Mandalorian, and this is chapter 9, The Marshal, which, oh goodness, there's so much to cover in this episode. So, this is the first episode of season 2. And this is, I believe, the longest episode of The Mandalorian we've had so far. This is 52 minutes long. So we're kind of getting into like normal television show range, or normal like hour-long range. And oh wow, there was a lot happening here. So when we start off, The Mandalorian, Djarin has decided he needs to really just dive right into finding out who knows anything about the Jedi so that he can get the child to his own people. And he starts out by meeting up with a criminal who takes Mandalorian armor. It's Gor Koresh, played by John Leguizamo. This show really likes to get comedic people to play these random roles in the show. But in what we've known for a long time, there was going to be like a Gamorrean gladiatorial pit. I keep on seeing people call them Gamorrean guards, but they're just Gamorreans. They're only Gamorrean guards when they're actually guarding people. These are Gamorrean warriors, or Gamorrean gladiators. Let's make that happen. Gamorrean guards and Gamorrean gladiators. But we've known that this was going to happen for a while because we did have Jon Favreau, who directed and wrote this episode. He had tweeted pictures of the Gamorrean gladiators for a long, long time ago. But Koresh tells Din that there's a Mandalorian on Tatooine, which I have to say that the Mandalorian has the right idea. Certainly finding a Mandalorian is a good way to find a Jedi to look after the child. But going for the wrong Mandalorian, like we need to find us some Sabine Wren. Please give me Sabine Wren. I want Sabine Wren. I want my precious blueberry. There's so many characters that that I want to appear in The Mandalorian that would make sense. But so The Mandalorian goes back to Tatooine, and we get another appearance from Amy Sedaris as Palimato, and she basically speaks for the entire audience when talking about the child, about how, you know, we all want the child, and, you know, can the child, you know, bud or reproduce in some way so that everybody can have their own? Yes, very much speaking for the audience. And we find out that there is a city in on Tatooine that is thought to be destroyed. It's called Mos Pelgo, and nobody can really find it, but the Mandalorian's going to go there and on speeder and figure out if there's anybody actually there. And one criticism I have to say is just the safety issues of putting the child on a speeder like that. The child was kind of in a little bag, just kind of strapped to the back of the speeder bike. And granted, the speeder wasn't going nearly as fast as it can, but my goodness, like, it would have been so easy for the child to fall out. Can somebody please get Mando a papoose? I would give so much money to see the Mandalorian in a papoose, like a Beskar, like, little thing like that. I live. Fan artists, please get me a picture of the Mandalorian with the child in a papoose. I have spoken. But Mando goes to Mos Pelgo and finds the person who's been wearing the Mandalorian armor, and it is Cobb Vanth. For those of you who are fans of the Star Wars Expanded Universe, Cobb Vanth first appeared in the Aftermath books by Chuck Wendig. And we'd kind of gotten the implication that the armor he wore was Boba Fett's, but it was never confirmed until we actually saw him in this. I really like how the armor doesn't look like it fits Cobb Vanth particularly well. I don't know the size difference between Tamora Morrison and Timothy Oliphant, but it does look like Cobb Vanth is supposed to be much taller. Yeah, I actually just looked it up. Tamora Morrison's only like 5'6", and I think Jeremy Bulloch was also fairly small. So Boba Fett is a very small, kind of compact person. Meanwhile, there's Timothy Oliphant is 6 foot, so it makes sense that the Boba Fett armor should look like it doesn't quite fit Cobb Vanth all that well. And I don't like that. I like that this armor, even though it's helpful, it's not something that fits him naturally because it wasn't made for him. I thought Timothy Oliphant did a fantastic job as Cobb Vanth. Obviously, this was very much playing into the whole Deadwood. Like, I don't think we've had an episode that more played on the whole Western aspect of things. This really just leaned into it, and I thought it worked very well. This kind of lonely town that, Mando comes into, and Cobb Vanth is... I was worried they were going to make him out to be a bad guy, but no, he was a very straightforward guy who was just like, listen, I'm trying to do what I can to protect my town, and I understand you Mandalorians have your code, and I will respect that code. You just got to help me out with this. And I'm got to talk about there's several big things in this episode, but the first big thing, the part of the main plot, that the reason why Cobb Vanth really wants to keep this armor is because he's protecting the town from a Krayt Dragon. And as a longtime Star Wars fan, actually having a Krayt Dragon play a main part in this filled me with such geeker joy, because from A New Hope, we've known about the Krayt Dragons. We saw that huge skeleton in the background of in the Dune Sea when 3PO and R2 are moving along. So but that was all we ever saw. We just saw this big skeleton. We didn't really understand what this creature was, and there's been mentions of them in ancillary canon, but this is the first time we've ever seen, and I don't even think we ever saw them in any of the animated series. I think this is the first time that's like, yes, here is a visualization of Krayt Dragon, and they did such a fantastic job of it. I thought the Krayt Dragon looked great. This was obviously much more CGI than the Mandalorian's been using a lot of practical effects, but the Krayt Dragon had to have been done with CGI, and I thought it worked very, very well. One thing I thought was interesting, obviously this show plays a lot with the expanded universe continuity. It's very respectful of that. We've got Cobb Vanth in here, and we've had little bits of other stuff that have come up from books. In one of the books, it is established that the Tusken Raiders will hunt Krayt Dragons as like a rite of passage. So this idea that the Tusken Raiders would need other people in order to kill a Krayt Dragon, I wasn't sure how that sat with me, but then thinking about it, they did really say that this Krayt Dragon was much bigger than the normal ones. So I think that this was such a monster that it just needed everybody to come together. One thing, I wasn't sure about calling it a Leviathan. That seemed a little too our worldly, a little too Christiany. Not really featuring that reference. I think that's the only thing that really wasn't too crazy about. There's one thing that I want to get into, and I think that this could be a bit more of a controversial, no, maybe not controversial, but a bit more of a heavy subject than I usually get into in terms of my reviews. But the thing that I really liked about this episode was the portrayal of the Tusken Raiders. The Tusken Raiders have never been given a lot of respect in the Star Wars universe. And the Tusken Raiders play on some very unfortunate stereotypes. Back in the day, I mean, obviously, there's a lot of Western feels on Tatooine, and the Tusken Raiders very much played into the savage Indian idea, where it's like these marauders coming out of nowhere and attacking our heroes. When we see them in the prequels, again, they're, marauders. They kidnap Shmi and keep her captive and torture her and do terrible, terrible things to her to the point where she's killed. It's all very... it doesn't feel good that you should... Star Wars does have an unfortunate history of taking stereotypes of real life ethnicities and applying them to fantastical groups. And while even if they don't appear to be the original ethnic group, they still do represent that group. So having the Tusken Raiders be sand people who are savage and, inhuman, it plays upon some very, unfortunate stereotypes that need to be dismantled. And this episode, they've already done it a little bit in the previous season, but in this episode in particular, they really head on go for the Tusken Raiders are not savages. They are their own culture, their own rich culture. They have their own form of communication. I like that their form of communication is based on sign language. For the most part, they do have some vocalizations, but it is primarily a sign language. And just because other people don't understand them, just because other people don't really understand their culture, that does not make them savages. They're highly intelligent, we find out. And they are absolutely deserve to be respected. It was done in a way that I don't know if everyone will pick up on the fact that, yes, they were trying to repair damage to, it sounds funny that I should be, talking about them, humanizing the sand people, but it is very important that they do humanize the sand people because they are very much based off of the stereotype of a group that does not appear in Star Wars, but a group that is in our real world. But yes, I liked seeing the sand people as very, as a fully developed culture and one that is deserving of respect. And I hope to see more of that. It fit very well that we were going for this very Deadwood heavy Western feel. And we turn things on its head by bringing in the Sand People and having them be very heroic in this episode, and have them come to an agreement at the end. Not just an agreement, but an accord where they're going to be at peace now. And I like that. I like that at least some of the Sand People on Tatooine are going to have some form of peace, because they deserve. I mean, these are the same Sand People that were, torn apart by Anakin Skywalker. They've been treated like animals for decades, and I want to see them get the respect they deserve. Just, this episode was fantastic. I loved. So, I mean, it's hard for me to say, because I didn't actually go back and watch season 1 before I watched this episode, because I've had a lot of other stuff to do. But as a single episode, this may be in one of my top episodes, because while there is some of the ongoing plot with Din wanting to find the child's people, it was a standalone in that it's go into a town, do a thing, then leave. So I like that standalone nature of it. But I think that it did seed things for the future. I hope Cobb Vanth returns. I think Timothy Olyphant did such a fantastic job. I think tossing that character away would be a big mistake. I assume that we're going to be going back onto Tatooine, and that's because of, let's get right into it. We've got to get into the end of this episode. Boba Fett appears. Din Djarin gets the armor from Cobb Vanth, and, he goes on his way, and we find out where the armor actually came from, and we see a very old Boba Fett, still on Tatooine, and looking super grizzled, but it's Boba Fett. So, how do I feel about this? Because I have talked before about how I'm not the hugest fan of Boba Fett. But seeing him appear, I was so here for it. And here is the reason why. Because we saw Temuera Morrison. Now, that's not to say that because this actor came back. I mean, yes, that is great. But had we seen him in a copy of his Boba Fett armor, if he was still just the cool armor guy, then that I wouldn't have been too into. But this, where we're giving every indication that he's no longer a bounty hunter, that something has happened to him, where maybe he's living as a nomad, maybe he's developed some sort of life for himself on Tatooine, maybe he's living in Obi-Wan's hut. Oh, could he do that? Would Luke allow that? Luke probably took all of Obi-Wan's stuff out of there, didn't he? Because he had been staying there in Return of the Jedi. I don't know, I'm just kind of rambling at this point. But maybe Boba Fett has become some sort of weird hermit on Tatooine. Because he couldn't get away. Like, I assume that somebody took Slave One. So, yeah, if he's been on Tatooine this whole time and kind of developed this other life for himself, I like that idea better than I like Boba Fett still being like this, powerful bounty hunter. I say that as somebody who did bring him back as this powerful bounty hunter. But that was a different situation than this. How many years after Return of the Jedi is this? He's very grizzled for appearing right after Return of the Jedi. Just a couple of years. But I guess if he's been living on Tatooine in that time. Yeah. So if he's been there for 5 years? maybe he wants to get the armor back so that he can become Boba Fett again. I don't know. Just gonna vomit out ideas. That's kind of what I do. Let's face it, that is what I do. Vomit out ideas. But yeah, no, seeing him, I knew that Boba Fett was coming back, but I didn't think we were going to see him so quickly. And when we did see him, I'm like, oh, okay, you know what? I'm here for this. I am interested. Like, you've hooked me just in this one shot of him. I'm intrigued by the storyline. If he had been in a copy of his armor and he was just the same old Boba Fett, I would have felt like they were only doing it for fan service. But by having him appear like this, I feel like there might actually be a story for him. So if there is an actual story, then I'm in. I should have had faith in Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni because they have not let me down so far. Now, the one character I've not really talked about in this is the child, and that's because there's not really much for the child to do in this. He's just kind of there because he has to be there, and there are some cute moments, and there's some shots that I'm sure will be turned into pop figures. Like, I'm sure we're going to get a child inside the little vase. It was fine. They didn't overplay him. But they didn't overplay him, but they also didn't underplay him. They kind of had just enough of him. So I think that's about it. Seriously, I'm feeling so drained from all of the Mandalorian is the third on my list of shows that I have to watch within 6 hours of each other. And so much happened in all of them, so by the time I was getting to the Boba Fett reveal, I'm like, oh my god, I can't take any more revelations about stuff. But I enjoyed it. I've enjoyed every single episode of The Mandalorian, and this was no exception. I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks to seeing exactly what's going to happen, how Boba Fett's going to come back even more, more exploration of characters, Din Djarin trying to find somebody to take the child. I think that he's going to find more people. We have lots of rumors about characters that might come back or might appear for the first time. So something's going to happen, but if I'm to lay down my bets on things, I think he's going to end up keeping the child. I think that they are a clan of two now. No matter what, I think that the child is going to stay with him. This is the way. This is the way. So comment down below with your thoughts on Chapter 9, The Marshal, or your predictions for future episodes. If you like this video, please subscribe to my channel for others, and I will be doing more videos about Star Wars, Star Trek, Supernatural, Sherlock, and lots of other geeky things. If you'd like to support me, you can go over to my Patreon, where you will get early videos, exclusive videos. You can participate in polls and many other things. You can also buy me a coffee. If you would like something to wear, you can hit up my TeePublic or Redbubble. Today I'm wearing my Save Ben Solo shirt, which I made before The Rise of Skywalker. But I think it still applies now. It might even be more relevant now. So until next time, live long and may the Force be with you. This is the way. I have spoken.